Welcome back to our mini-series on ocean conditions for scuba divers, brought to you in partnership with Rite. In this fourth installment, we're going to be looking at wave action. We're going to be looking at what causes ocean waves, 3 particular reasons, and how you can best tackle ocean waves to make sure that when you dive, you're handling the conditions and the conditions aren't handling you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Divers Ready. My name's James. As always, so great to see all of your smiling faces out there in YouTube land. Thank you so much to everyone that has supported this mini-series brought to you in partnership with Rite. And I especially again want to thank Rite for sponsoring this series of videos. If you haven't done so already, I will put a link to all of Rite's social media channels in the description of this video below, and if you could do me the favor of thanking them for sponsoring this series, if you've learned something from it, if it's made you a better or safer diver, don't tell me, tell Rite and let them know that James from Divers Ready sent you. I'd greatly appreciate that. It helps us out. Right, we've reached the end of this little mini journey. We've talked about currents, we've talked about visibility, we've talked about temperature, and now it's time to look at wave action. A lot of people will be like, oh yeah, waves, I know how waves work and the whole thing, but you'd be surprised the amount of mistakes I see divers make while diving in swell. So we're going to talk about in this video what causes waves, 3 particular things. We're going to talk about the best techniques for diving in waves. We're going to talk about shore entries and exits, particularly through surf. I'm going to share with you some of my experiences doing that kind of diving. And we're going to talk about boat etiquette in rough seas. Okay, let's dive into it. So as I said, there are 3 things that cause wave action. First off, you have tidal waves. These are not tsunamis. We'll get to tsunamis in a minute, but tidal wave action that's caused by the pull of the tides, which is caused by the gravitational pull of both the moon and the sun and their relative positions to each other. Secondly, you have waves caused by some kind of underwater seismic event, be that an eruption of an underwater volcano or an underwater earthquake or an underwater landslide, but something causes a disruption, displaces a large volume of water. That space then needs to be filled in with other water, which causes the water to recede and then go back again, and so on and so forth. And that's what we refer to as a tsunami. Case in point, Thailand, we all saw the devastation there. Absolutely horrific. The third kind of waves is the most common that we deal with on a daily basis as ocean divers, and that is wind-driven waves. Wind-driven waves are caused by the friction that's created between wind hitting the water's surface tension. That's it. That's what causes driving waves as we know them. The wave that you're actually looking at, if you stand on a cliff and look out to sea, is actually the energy wave of that friction being transmitted. So that water is being driven. It's not driven by current, it's not driven by seismic activity, it's actually the force of the friction of the wind hitting the ocean's surface. Then of course, as that energy wave is transmitted through the water, it's going to react to whatever the depths and the bottom profile is that it's presented with. When you have an area where deep water meets shallow water, that wave will crest up and break according to the laws of physics. Wave action will affect divers in various different ways depending on the type of diving you're doing. So we're going to look at boat diving and shore diving separately. Let's start with shore diving. Shore diving, presuming you're entering and exiting the ocean from a land-based position. Now, if you're doing what's called a surf entry, normally off of a beach, this implies that you're going to be walking through some kind of wave action to get out to your dive site. And there are very particular techniques that you need to understand in order to successfully complete a shore entry. And if you've never done a surf or shore entry through waves before, I strongly encourage you to get with a local guide or instructor and have them walk you through it. You do not need a specialty cert card, surf entry, specialty, blah, blah, blah. No, but it is useful to go under the supervision of somebody who knows what they're doing. Essentially, it's making sure that you've got all your gear on, tested, ready to go, mask on your face, regulator in your mouth, and your fins firmly attached to you or in your hand or over your wrists, and then making sure that you're going into the water in the safest possible way protecting yourself from head to toe. Without doubt though, surf entries and surf exits are the most difficult way to get in and out of the water for any given dive. Absolutely. As for boat entry and exits, well, obviously the entry part isn't such a big issue. We have talked about seasickness in other videos on this channel. I'll link a video up above there, so I don't want to harbour on too much on that topic because I feel that's covered ground. But I do want to talk about boat exits. In other words, getting out of the water, getting back onto a boat. That is often the majority of ocean diving injuries are caused not by marine predators, not by the bends, not by oxygen toxicity. They're caused by boat ladders. That is without doubt the number one cause of diver-related injuries in my personal experience. You have a free swinging metal ladder that is attached to a 4 to 6 ton dive boat that is being thrown around by Mother Nature's will. Yeah. If you try and fight that ladder, you are going to lose that fight 100% of the time and end up with summer teeth. What are summer teeth? Some are there, some are missing. So there's a few things you need to consider if you're going to reboard your dive vessel via a ladder in rough wave action. Number one is listen to the boat crew. They know their boat, do as you're told. Secondly is don't crowd the ladder, don't be under somebody who's climbing the ladder, because if a wave knocks them off, they'll be fine and you'll take their tank front and center to your face. Second of all, timing is everything. Take your fins off before you approach the ladder, use the float line to pull yourself in, but look ahead of the boat and see waves move in sets. They're energy waves, remember? So once the energy waves have passed you, you'll have a period of lull before the next set arrives. So make sure you time your approach to the ladder coordinated with that lull in the wave action. So that covers entry and exit for shore diving or surf diving and boat diving. What about when you're actually in the water? How do you cope with waves? Well, on the surface, there is one incredibly simple piece of advice that I see divers neglect all the time with terrible results. And that is, if you're on the surface with strong waves, keep your regulator in your mouth and keep your mask on your face. That way you can see and you can breathe. Two facilities of the human body that I greatly appreciate and can never be overvalued. It's incredibly tempting when you come up from a fantastic dive and you're on the surface to pop that regulator out of your mouth and start telling everyone how fantastic the dive was and the turtle that you saw and interacted with and checking that your buddy's okay and all that kind of stuff. All of those things can wait. Keep your reg in your mouth, get back on board safely, get the rest of your team back on board safely, and then you've got the whole boat ride back in to tell everyone how fantastic your dive was. Conversely, there was actually an incident not that long ago where a guy took his regulator out of his mouth. He was on the ladder with one hand. A wave passed under the boat. I think it was a twin-hulled boat. That wave vented up and just happened to be a freak accident. He breathed in at the wrong time just as his wave hit him in the mouth, and the dude drowned on the surface. So you guys don't have to learn that lesson the hard way. Mask on the face, reg in the mouth. We'll talk about it later. Okay, but what about wave action underwater while we're diving? Well, the deeper you go, the less wave action affects you. So it's a hell of a lot easier to deal with waves on a deeper dive than it is, for example, on a shallow reef. The shallow reef itself will cause a change in depth, which will cause waves to increase and also provide some kind of surge action. Surge, as opposed to currents, is water that's caused by waves hitting an inanimate object and going to and from and causing a swaying of the water and therefore a swaying of you. So when you dive in surge, it's best to kick when the wave is going in the direction you want to travel and not really try and kick against it, because that can be incredibly exhausting. There's a certain rhythm to diving in surge that you need to perfect. Also, reason that it's quite dangerous to dive in shallow water in rough waves is because you can get tossed around and pitched around. It doesn't happen as often as you would think, because if you think about it, why wouldn't that happen to fish at the same time? Even if you're coping with the surge action pretty well, it's still not ideal to dive shallow if there's strong wave action, because you could end up being pitched onto the rocks, onto the reef yourself. So if at all possible, do the outer part of the reef, do the deeper part of the reef if the waves are strong. Without a doubt, waves are the number one reason that my dives here in South Florida occasionally get cancelled, because the boats can't handle the waves. So in the same way that, you know, there's no such thing as bad weather, just inappropriate clothing, there's no such thing as too big of waves, there's just inappropriate boats. I do want to say thank you again to all of you that headed over to Rite's social channels, links in the description below if you haven't done so already, just to let them know that you appreciate sponsoring this series of videos so that we can keep bringing content to you that helps hopefully make you a better, safer diver. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. There's a great big white button just down there. And give this video a thumbs up if you learned something. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, my name's James. This was your Divers Ready video for this week. Dive safe, dive often.